A pair of eyeglasses may seem like one of the simplest inventions ever made. Two lenses, a frame, and a way to keep them balanced on your face. But behind this everyday object lies a story that stretches back thousands of years. A story of brilliant discoveries, forgotten inventors, and one invention that quietly transformed human civilization. Before eyeglasses existed, growing older often meant watching the world slowly blur until reading, writing, and even recognizing faces became nearly impossible. Knowledge didn't disappear because books were lost. It disappeared because people could no longer see the words in front of them. Long before anyone imagined wearing glasses, ancient civilizations were already fascinated by light. In Egypt, polished crystals and glass ornaments reflected sunlight in mysterious ways. In Mesopotamia, craftsmen shaped transparent stones for decoration, unknowingly experimenting with materials that could bend light. Although these cultures didn't understand optics, they noticed that certain curved surfaces changed the appearance of objects beneath them. The first serious attempts to understand vision came from the ancient Greeks. Around the 4th century BC, philosophers like Plato and Aristotle debated how humans actually saw the world. Some believed invisible rays shot out from the eyes and touched objects. Others argued that light entered the eye instead. They didn't have the right answer, but they asked the right questions. Those debates inspired centuries of scientific investigation. A few generations later, the mathematician Euclid studied how light traveled in straight lines and how angles affected sight. His work laid the mathematical foundation for geometry and perspective, principles that would later become essential for understanding lenses. Meanwhile, in Roman times, the philosopher Seneca reportedly observed that letters appeared larger when viewed through a globe filled with water. It wasn't an invention of eyeglasses, but it revealed an important truth. Transparent curved materials could magnify objects. The Romans also valued clear vision for practical reasons. Reading official documents, managing trade, and recording military information required sharp eyesight. Yet there was still no reliable solution for aging eyes. As people grew older, they simply accepted that reading would become harder, often relying on younger assistants to read important texts aloud. For scholars, merchants, and government officials, fading eyesight could mean the end of their careers. Real progress came centuries later in the Islamic Golden Age. During the 10th and 11th centuries, the brilliant scientist Ibn al-Haytham, known in Europe as al-Hazan, transformed the study of optics. Working in Cairo, he rejected the old Greek belief that eyes emitted rays. Through careful experiments, he demonstrated that vision occurs when light reflects off objects and enters the eye. His groundbreaking work, collected in the Book of Optics, explained reflection, refraction, and the behavior of light with remarkable accuracy. These discoveries spread slowly across Europe through translations into Latin. They reached monasteries, universities, and scholars who were hungry for knowledge. For the first time, scientists had a practical understanding of how lenses could alter light instead of relying on philosophical speculation alone. It was a turning point that quietly prepared the world for one of history's most useful inventions. Meanwhile, across medieval Europe, another problem was becoming impossible to ignore. Monasteries had become the guardians of knowledge, preserving thousands of handwritten manuscripts. Monks spent countless hours copying religious texts by candlelight. But many of these scribes were aging, and their eyesight was failing. Every blurred letter slowed their work. Every mistake threatened the accuracy of precious books that could take years to complete. Their solution was surprisingly simple. Craftsmen polished pieces of clear quartz or glass into rounded shapes known today as reading stones. Instead of being worn, these convex lenses rested directly on top of the page, enlarging the letters underneath. The effect was remarkable. Older scribes who struggled to read tiny handwriting suddenly found they could continue their work. Reading stones didn't restore vision, but they bought time for scholars to keep learning, writing, and preserving knowledge. As Europe's demand for books continued to grow, so did the need for better vision aids. Glassmakers, particularly in northern Italy, became increasingly skilled at producing high-quality glass. Their workshops experimented with thickness, curvature, and clarity, often discovering improvements through trial and error rather than scientific theory. Few realized they were standing on the edge of an invention that would change education, commerce, science, and daily life forever. Somewhere in Italy, near the end of the 13th century, someone made a leap that no one had attempted before. Instead of placing a magnifying lens over a page, they joined two lenses together so they could be held directly in front of the eyes. It was a simple idea, but it changed history. The exact identity of the inventor has been lost to history. Unlike many famous discoveries, there was no signed blueprint, no patent, and no official announcement. Instead, historians believe the first wearable eyeglasses appeared somewhere in northern Italy between 1285 and 1290. The thriving cities of Venice, Pisa, and Florence were home to Europe's finest glassmakers, making them the most likely birthplace of this revolutionary invention. One of the earliest written references appeared in 1306, when the Dominican friar Giordano da Pisa told a congregation that the art of making eyeglasses had been invented less than 20 years earlier. He even remarked that he had met the inventor personally, although frustratingly, he never revealed the person's name. That single sentence remains one of history's greatest technological mysteries. The earliest spectacles looked nothing like the glasses we wear today. They had two convex lenses connected by a small rivet, allowing them to pivot. There were no arms to rest on the ears. Instead, users balanced them on the bridge of the nose or held them by hand while reading. It was awkward, but for someone who had been slowly losing the ability to read, the experience must have felt almost miraculous. These first eyeglasses mainly helped people suffering from presbyopia, the natural age-related loss of near vision. Older scholars who had nearly given up reading could suddenly return to their manuscripts. Merchants could once again inspect contracts and financial records. Judges could review legal documents without assistance. Priests could continue reading sacred texts during religious ceremonies. A simple pair of lenses quietly extended productive careers by years, sometimes even decades. As demand increased, Italian craftsmen refined both the lenses and the methods used to produce them. Venice, already famous for the glassmakers of Murano Island, became one of Europe's greatest centers for optical craftsmanship. Producing perfectly clear glass was extraordinarily difficult. Tiny bubbles, impurities, or uneven surfaces could distort vision instead of improving it. Master glassmakers guarded their techniques closely, and their workshops became some of the most valuable industries in medieval Europe. By the 14th century, eyeglasses were spreading beyond Italy. Traders carried them across France, Germany, England, and the Low Countries. Although they remained expensive luxury items, they quickly became symbols of education and wisdom. Artists began painting scholars, judges, physicians, and saints wearing spectacles, using them as visual shorthand for intelligence and learning. Their influence reached far beyond individual readers. Europe was entering a period of expanding universities, growing trade, and increasing literacy. Books were becoming more valuable than ever, especially after Johannes Gutenberg introduced the movable type printing press around 1450. Suddenly, thousands of books could be produced where only a handful had existed before. But books alone were not enough. People also needed the ability to read them. Eyeglasses and the printing press formed a powerful partnership that accelerated the spread of knowledge across the continent. Scientists, mathematicians, and explorers also benefited from improving optical technology. Better lenses encouraged more careful observation of the natural world. Over time, the same understanding of glass and optics that produced spectacles would lead to entirely new instruments. Magnifying glasses became more effective. Microscopes eventually revealed invisible organisms. Telescopes opened humanity's eyes to distant planets and stars. Although these inventions required centuries of additional refinement, their roots can be traced back to the same breakthroughs in lens making that created the first eyeglasses. The design of spectacles continued evolving as people searched for greater comfort. During the 15th and 16th centuries, some users tied ribbons around their heads to keep the glasses in place. Others experimented with leather straps or handmade supports. Later, craftsmen developed nose bridges with improved balance, making spectacles easier to wear for longer periods. By the 17th century, frames became lighter, stronger, and more fashionable. Wealthy families often commissioned beautifully crafted spectacles made from silver, brass, tortoiseshell, or finely carved wood. Glasses were no longer seen merely as medical tools, they were becoming personal possessions that reflected status, taste, and craftsmanship. Then came another important milestone in the 18th century. Benjamin Franklin, frustrated by constantly switching between two different pairs of glasses, one for reading and another for seeing distant objects, created bifocal lenses. By combining two prescriptions into a single frame, Franklin solved a problem millions of people still face today. His innovation made daily life more convenient and demonstrated that eyeglasses could continue evolving instead of remaining fixed in their medieval design. By the end of the 18th century, spectacles had become far more than an aid for aging monks. They were essential tools for scholars, craftsmen, merchants, navigators, scientists, and political leaders. Quietly, without armies or revolutions, eyeglasses had become one of the most influential inventions in human history, preparing society for an age of scientific discovery unlike anything the world had ever seen. The 19th century transformed eyeglasses from handcrafted luxury items into products that ordinary people could finally afford. As the Industrial Revolution swept across Europe and North America, factories introduced machines capable of producing lenses and frames with far greater speed and consistency than individual craftsmen ever could. Improvements in glassmaking created clearer, more accurate lenses, while advances in metalworking produced stronger and lighter frames. What had once been a rare possession for scholars and wealthy merchants gradually became available to teachers, factory workers, office clerks, and families from every level of society. At the same time, scientists were learning far more about how the human eye actually worked. Rather than simply making objects appear larger, opticians began measuring different vision problems with increasing precision. Nearsightedness, farsightedness, and astigmatism could now be corrected with carefully shaped lenses designed specifically for each person's eyes. Visiting an optician was becoming a scientific examination instead of simply trying on whichever spectacles seemed to work best. By the late 19th century, eye examinations had become more systematic, and the profession of optometry began to emerge. Doctors and vision specialists developed standardized methods for testing eyesight, allowing millions of people to receive prescriptions tailored to their individual needs. Glasses were no longer just helping aging readers. They were improving the lives of children struggling in school, craftsmen working with tiny details, sailors navigating dangerous coastlines, and engineers designing the machines that powered the modern world. Frame designs also continued to evolve. The uncomfortable riveted spectacles of medieval Italy disappeared in favor of lightweight frames with arms that rested securely over the ears. New materials, such as steel, nickel, and eventually plastics, made glasses more durable, affordable, and comfortable enough to wear throughout the day. For the first time in history, vision correction became part of everyday life rather than an occasional aid for reading. The 20th century brought even greater breakthroughs. Scientists developed lightweight optical plastics that reduced the weight of lenses without sacrificing clarity. New coatings minimized reflections, resisted scratches, and filtered harmful ultraviolet light. Progressive lenses allowed people to see clearly at multiple distances without the visible dividing line found in traditional bifocals. For millions, wearing glasses became easier, more comfortable, and almost effortless. Yet many people still dreamed of correcting their vision without wearing frames at all. That dream led to another remarkable invention, the contact lens. Although early concepts had existed for centuries, practical contact lenses only became widely available during the 20th century thanks to advances in materials science. Soft, flexible lenses could rest directly on the eye, providing clear vision while remaining nearly invisible. Athletes, performers, and anyone seeking greater freedom quickly embraced the new technology. The next revolution arrived with laser eye surgery. Procedures such as LASIK reshaped the surface of the eye itself, reducing or even eliminating the need for glasses in many patients. What medieval monks had solved with polished stones could now be addressed with lasers guided by sophisticated computers, completing a technological journey that had taken more than 700 years. Today, eyeglasses continue to evolve far beyond simple vision correction. Modern lenses can automatically darken in sunlight, block blue light from digital screens, or become thinner than ever despite strong prescriptions. Engineers are even developing smart glasses capable of displaying navigation, translating languages in real time, recording video, and overlaying digital information onto the world around us through augmented reality. The humble pair of spectacles is becoming a wearable computer, merging one of humanity's oldest optical inventions with cutting-edge digital technology. Perhaps the most remarkable part of this story is how quietly it unfolded. There was no single dramatic moment that changed everything overnight. Instead, countless discoveries in mathematics, physics, glassmaking, medicine, and engineering gradually combined over centuries. Each generation improved upon the work of those before it, turning simple magnifying stones into precision instruments that help billions of people see the world more clearly. It's easy to overlook something we use every day. We clean our glasses, place them on a table, or slide them into a pocket without giving them a second thought. Yet every pair carries the legacy of ancient philosophers questioning how vision works, medieval monks preserving knowledge by candlelight, Venetian craftsmen perfecting the art of glassmaking, Renaissance scientists unlocking the secrets of light, and modern engineers pushing the boundaries of technology. Without eyeglasses, countless books might never have been written, scientific discoveries might have been delayed, and generations of artists, teachers, doctors, inventors, and leaders could have lost the ability to continue their life's work. Few inventions have extended human knowledge so quietly or so profoundly. The next time you put on a pair of glasses, remember that you're not simply improving your eyesight, you're wearing the result of more than 2,000 years of curiosity, craftsmanship, and scientific discovery. A simple invention that allowed humanity to keep learning, creating, and seeing the future with clearer eyes than ever before.